The Fall of the Berlin Wall, How It Changed the World Forever script. The Berlin Wall stood for nearly 3 decades as one of the most powerful symbols of division in the modern world. Separating East and West Berlin, it was more than just a physical barrier. It represented the ideological divide between communism and democracy during the Cold War. But in 1989, in a moment that shocked the world, the Berlin Wall fell, marking the end of an era and paving the way for the reunification of Germany. Today, we're diving into the history behind the Berlin Wall, how its collapse came to be, and the impact this historic event had on the world. The rise of the Berlin Wall, a divided city. To understand the fall of the Berlin Wall, we must first look at why it was built. After the end of World War II, Germany was divided into 2 parts: the Federal Republic of Germany in the West, backed by the United States and its allies, and the German Democratic Republic (GDR) in the East, controlled by the Soviet Union. Berlin, the capital, was also divided into East and West, with the western side representing democratic ideals and the eastern side under strict communist control. Tensions escalated in the late 1950s and early 1960s. People living in East Berlin and East Germany were fleeing to the West in massive numbers, seeking political freedom and better economic opportunities. This mass exodus threatened the stability of the GDR, so on August 13, 1961, the East German government took a drastic step. They began constructing the Berlin Wall, turning the city into a heavily guarded border zone. Overnight, families, friends, and neighbors were separated. The wall stretched 96 miles, complete with watchtowers, barbed wire, and armed guards, creating a physical and psychological barrier that would stand for nearly 30 years. Any attempt to cross the wall was met with severe punishment, and many who tried were shot or captured. Life behind the wall. For the citizens of East Berlin, life behind the Berlin Wall was harsh. The communist regime controlled nearly every aspect of daily life, from employment to education, and there was little freedom of movement. The East German secret police, known as the Stasi, kept a close watch on the population, ensuring that any dissent against the government was quickly silenced. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, life in West Berlin was dramatically different. With the support of Western allies, West Berlin thrived as a vibrant, democratic society. This stark contrast between the 2 Berlins only fueled the desire for East Berliners to escape, further solidifying the wall as a symbol of repression. By the late 1980s, the Cold War was beginning to thaw. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms like glasnost openness and perestroika restructuring, signaling a more open and less rigid approach to communist governance. Across Eastern Europe, the grip of authoritarian regimes began to loosen, and calls for democratic reform grew louder. In East Germany, discontent was rising. Protests, especially in the city of Leipzig, were growing in size and frequency, with thousands of citizens demanding greater political freedom. The East German government, led by Erich Honecker, initially responded with repression, but by 1989, the pressure was becoming too much to ignore. On November 9, 1989, a mistake by an East German government spokesperson would change the course of history. During a live press conference, the spokesperson mistakenly announced that East Germans could travel freely to the West, effective immediately. Within hours, thousands of East Berliners gathered at the wall, demanding to be let through. Overwhelmed and unprepared, the border guards had no choice but to open the gates, and the Berlin Wall began to fall. The fall of the Berlin Wall. That night, a historic moment unfolded. East and West Berliners met at the wall, chipping away at it with hammers, picks, and even their bare hands. The images of people dancing on top of the wall, celebrating their newfound freedom, were broadcast around the world, symbolizing the collapse of the Cold War divide. The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't just mark the end of a divided city. It was a powerful signal that the Iron Curtain was crumbling. Over the next few years, communist regimes across Eastern Europe would fall, leading to the reunification of Germany in 1990 and the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. The Berlin Wall, once the most iconic symbol of division, had become a symbol of hope, unity, and the triumph of democracy. The legacy of the Berlin Wall. The fall of the Berlin Wall was one of the most significant geopolitical events of the 20th century. It ended decades of tension between the East and the West, changed the balance of power in Europe, and led to the reunification of Germany after nearly 30 years of division. But the wall's legacy lives on. Pieces of the Berlin Wall can still be seen today in museums, memorials, and even as artwork in public spaces around the world. In Berlin itself, sections of the wall have been preserved as a reminder of the struggle for freedom and the power of the human spirit to overcome oppression. For many who lived through the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall was more than just the collapse of a structure. It was the end of an era and the beginning of a new world order. Today, the wall stands as a reminder of what once divided us and how unity can prevail even in the face of the greatest divisions. The fall of the Berlin Wall marked a turning point in modern history, one that continues to shape our world today. What was once a symbol of division and oppression became a beacon of hope and freedom. The events of November 9, 1989, will forever remind us that no barrier, no matter how strong, can withstand the will of a people united in the pursuit of liberty. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to ValeQuest for more stories that shaped our history.